Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today I am showcasing a product that my friend Ben Eadie is relaunching. He recently kind of revamped the way they're manufacturing it and a couple of other things to iron out, and has officially relaunched his foam chainmail and scale mail for purchase. I'll put links down in the description below of all their social media stuff and their website so you can go buy your own if you would like. It is a pretty amazing product. I have used it on quite a few builds in the past, and if you are somebody who wants to cosplay using foam and don't want to have the heaviness of a full set of chainmail, this is a route to go. I'm going to show you a method to use it as paneling for a shield I'm going to build, but it is very versatile. I've shown it in several builds, like I've said, and shown on the screen. So hopefully you will get some new tips and tricks and things out of it. I've got something that I think is pretty cool for those little hole punches that just kind of sit there. So today I am building an epic dragon / skull shield out of foam. Let's get to building. For the base of this shield, I just need to make a circle, so using the hole in my ruler and a notch that I filed into the opposite end, I pinned a thumbtack down to my EVA foam and made my circumference of the shield. Then I cut strips of about 2 or 3 inches thick to act as planks on the back side. This video is not sponsored by Foam Armory, but I am good friends with Ben Eadie. I have used his stuff in over 15 videos on the channel, including a helmet that is now in Adam Savage's collection of props. You can definitely go watch some of the other builds to get other ideas and applications for a very cool product to add to something with very little effort. To texture up my wood planks on the back, I went ahead and freehanded some rough wood grains in each plank. Make sure to wear a respirator and work in a well-ventilated area while sanding EVA foam. You don't want to breathe in the dust particles. I used 8mm and 6mm EVA foam for the back panels. I wanted it to be a bit rougher with slight variations in the plank depth, like it was a mass-produced item and the builder just used kind of what was on hand. With all my planks sanded, I slathered on some contact cement to the back of them, let them dry for a couple of minutes, and when it was no longer wet to the touch, permanently joined the foam parts together. Once all the panels were glued down, I trimmed away the excess bits of the planks to make my shield round again. The diameter of my shield plank is about 24 inches. Once all the trim and stuff is added to it, it sits at about 25 inches from one side to the other. So I know I wanted to add a little bit of trim details, and I'm pretty much making the entire thing up as I go. So I am going to start with a strip of 10mm foam cut at about 2 inches wide. I made a line on it to know where the shield would sit roughly in the middle of this band, and followed the same previous procedures of contact cement, weight, and then send caution to the wind, permanently attaching bits to each other. So I add some more layers of foam similar to how I did the side bands, trying my best to keep things as symmetrical as possible. The only thing I had planned for this build was I wanted to make a round shield, and I was going to use both the chainmail and scale mail as paneling for the divided sections. So here is Foam Armory's product. They are perforated onto some 2mm foam that easily punches out of the sheet. Then you have to go and remove the inner hole punchings out. I roll it up into a ball and it seems to get most of them out, and then you just plop the rest out with a finger. Make sure to save the holes as they make excellent faux rivets. I'm going to use them in a much different way in a few minutes here. To assemble the mail, you just push the loops into the next row of loops. Ben likes to use a crochet needle to help pull them through. I just fold the circles in half and push them in. Put on a show, and in less than 30 minutes you have a panel of mail. I have contact cemented the recess of the shield and the backside of the panels, so now all I have to do is put it together. I lay down my chainmail, pushing it firmly onto the shield, and then trim the excess off to make it nice and tidy. Later, I go around the border of the mail with a little strip of trim to hide any sloppiness. I spent a good bit of time designing some images for this build so that I could laser engrave them into some 4mm EVA foam. I made several motifs of dragons, knights, dragons fighting knights, and piles of skulls for both the front and the back of the shield. You could definitely do some of this by hand if you wanted to, but I figured letting the robot do the work would save me some time and make it a lot cleaner than I could have done on my own. I was able to let this stuff run while I focused on other parts of the shield. If you're interested interested in these files, I'll share them down in the description below with you. I didn't make a pattern for this build because the shield is just a circle and everything's just trimmed to fit around that circle. So here I am adding the engravings to my shield. I just thought it would look cooler than leaving these areas blank or having a row of rivets across them. They may be hard to see right now, but once a dry brush of paint hits them, you'll see that I have columns of stacked skulls, knights charging to fight dragons, and around the handle is an epic battle done in a medieval art style. Every time I use this foam, scale, or chainmail, I am left with half a Ziploc bag full of holes. Typically, I tell myself I'm gonna use them for something eventually, and they just kind of sit in my closet. I've used them for rivets here and there, but the pile far exceeds the needs. So after a little test piece, I thought it would be cool to fill that outer rim recess with the holes. Mod Podge over them a couple of times, and it would give it a nice, unique texture. So that's exactly what I did. I filled the hole with holes, mixed it with some Mod Podge, and let it dry for 24 hours. I came back the next day and filled any gaps that I had with additional layers, and then more Mod Podge. I wanted some more chunky rivets for the edges that would stand out from those hole punches and my outer band on the shield, so I rounded over the top of some 24mm and 15mm EVA dowels. Once they're rounded over to my liking, I cut them off a few millimeters thick and then sand over the next one. After they're all done, I sand flat a small section in the hole punch inlay and super glue them into place. added a few more layers of details using my laser cutter that I pieced together, and I'm now ready to cobble together a few pieces of PVC and elbow joints to make a handle for my shield. I super glue them together and drill a hole into the foam where it will lie, then super glue the whole assembly into place. This is the only part of the entire shield that is not made out of foam. Two coats of Plasti Dip. I tape off bits around the male overlay and dry brush my first layer of paint, some silver rub and buff, to my panels. I haven't yet decided what the color scheme is, but eventually I settle on green, silver, and gold-ish. It was mostly a tedious process of painting one area, letting it dry, then taping off another area to paint it with a different color. All total, I probably made about 10 passes with various acrylics, rub and buff, spray paints, and washes to get the desired amount of weathering that I wanted. It's hard to see in the photo, but the scale mail has a really nice chipping on the green paint where I literally just took the ball of tape and pushed it against the paint while it was still setting up. This shield has been sitting at this point in my build room for a few months now, waiting on the relaunch of the product to be live. Last week it was released, so now I am able to share with you the last bits of this build. I need to dry brush the back to make it look like old wood. This is done by having various browns on a cheap chip brush, knocking most of the paint off, and then hitting the high points of the texture. After one full pass, I add a little white to the mix and then make another pass, then again and again until I'm satisfied with the transitions. Once it was all painted, I added a little dab of black and brown around the edges to dirty it up and make it look like there was grit settling in. Last thing was to wrap the handle. Now, I could definitely have used EVA foam and painted it to look like leather if I wanted to, but there's just something to be said about that grip and feeling the leather in your hand that gives it that entire feeling of being legit. I cut one end at an angle and super glued it in a spiral around the PVC, putting skills of wrapping tennis rackets when I was a tennis coach to good use. Never would I have thought that wrapping a weapon or a shield would share the same skill set, but it has some crossover, I guess. And with that, this build is officially done. I know that it's not a Halloween related build for those of you who are watching when it releases, but it just fell when the launch fell. I'll be back into something spooky themed next week. Hope everyone has a great weekend and try to make something creative. And we are finished. Here is the end result. If you've ever watched the channel for a brief amount of time, you know that I love shields. I have made tons of them in the past, and in my classroom at school, I have quite a few of them on display for decorations, but this is one that I think is pretty awesome. I love the way the details turned out. It was something that I think really pops, and it is super light. Like, I'm guessing less than a pound, maybe. It's nothing. Definitely something that you could strap to your back or carry in a con and not get weighed down or tired from carrying. So yeah, maybe you will try and make one of these yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to build something that you really like to build and use products that you really like to use, and then just give a shout out to somebody who's pretty awesome and throw money at them. Just an exorbitant amount. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you'll get some. Yay! And inevitably, they're going to ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these. Tell them, much props. Time to add this to my shield collection. Peace out. If you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and want to see more builds like this one, please consider joining these awesome people listed here with me over on my Patreon to build a bigger, better, more creative community together.